All right, today we got our 16th interview. It's with Mafijosie, one of the really true all-time legends of the game. For an image here, he sent me a few images he said would be okay, so I stuck them all together, and I thought that would be nice. The first is his semifinals run. Which one did Unfixable win? I think this must be in Laguna, where he beats a really murderer's row. He beats Caus Debonair in round two, one of the two champions at that point in time. He beat Seto in round three. He beats Gambit, really long term great player, to make it to the semifinals. So, really nice run. Mafijosie just racked up semifinals in the early days. And while this tournament was a six rounder, a bunch of them were in seven rounders too. So instead of the standard semifinals run of going 4-1, or in the modern day 3-1, a lot of his icons were 5-1, right, which would normally be a finals. Um, on the right, we have from one of Doc Evil's runs, and as we will see, Mafijosie has the utmost respect for Doc Evil. So, and also, I want to say that, clearly Mafijosie really valued his time on Triple Triad X. He chose that banner. That was one that meant something to him and stood out to him. So I want to say all the TTA achievement I've seen is maybe not even the time when he was most closely tied to the game. Maybe that happened earlier on Triple Triad X. So I think that's pretty cool, and let's get into it. How would you describe your Triple Triad play or style? I would say defensive. Who is your most interesting opponent? Who is your toughest opponent? Best player I ever played is Doc Evil. There is no comparison for me. I have never beaten him in an open random game. His moves were surprising, unexpected, weird, but they always seem to work out in the end. I hope he is doing well, as I haven't spoken to him in years. Yeah, to not be beatable by someone as tremendous as Mafijosie is insane. Yeah. What formation or move type do you like more than other players do? This can be for either open or closed, or answer for both. My favorite game is closed, same plus, same wall, plus wall random, level 10 trade games. I've played thousands of those. Main reason for playing closed is that I do not have time to play. I used to play sneaky during working hours, having very limited time to move because I did not want my coworkers to see me playing. With open, it takes full concentration and preferably all the time you can get to consider your move. I only played open back in the days during tourneys, but I am a bit manic. I could spend days thinking of the best hand, trying different setups. I would go all out, dreaming about them, thinking on moves. I was super fanatic. All right, a bunch of things to say here. I love the close no combo rule set, and Mafijosie is one of the best at it. Turds is another great, and I mentioned this to him, and Turds replied, "Say hi," which I have not done. But that's nice. Say hi back. He was so good at same plus, same wall, plus wall random. It was scary. Yeah, he's one of the all-time greats at this. If not just the all-time great playing trade on it. I always played it not trade because I'm a wuss. Um, and it's a really neat rule set for just kind of understanding of how formations work and creating difficulties for the opponent, creating challenges for them. And I think Mafijosie's probably the best at that. And then when it came to open, clearly it wasn't something he was playing regularly, but when he did, he went all out and really put the work in and was just obviously a phenomenal open player. He's one of the all-time great tournament players. I have a stat coming out soon, which has only a few players ever lead all-time history in the stat, and Mafijosie takes the lead in it early, and then is passed by Doc Evil, and Doc Evil holds on to number one in that for a while. But it was a fun thing to look at and nice to see. There's this moment in time early, closer to TTX than more into, well into TTA, where he's arguably the number one tournament performer to that point in time. What formation or move type do you like less than other players do? I hate the X in any game with Elemental. Good man, we gotta like Mafijosie. Elemental is the worst. Favorite way to meet a corner starter? Cross corner. A side starter? Cross corner. A center starter? Any corner. I tend to orient towards corner-based play as well, so I quite like these answers. Do you have a preferred starter type? Yes, with the closed level 10 trade games, I'd like to start in 2, 4, 6, or 8. That's interesting. I tended to play those games. I tended to play those games with the feeling that on first turn, you want to leave things easy to take back, and on second turn, you want to challenge your opponent. You want stuff to be hard to take back because first turn is last turn, and you know. And so I tended to start with kind of things like weak corners uh, as my strategy. But I do think side starters are kind of weird to meet because you always have the kind of thought of, can I gamble going next to it, or is that covered? Or should I go far away, which gives him some control of formation, right? He can set up whatever J he likes, or he can try to challenge me, ask if I can take something facing out, and sometimes I cannot. Does that change between random and hand games? Does it change between open and closed? Yes, it all depends on the cards, but I tend to have a preference for the 2-4-6-8 start. In open, it all depends on the cards of my opponent. If I can play a safe start in a corner, I'd go for that. How do you spend time during the opponent's move? Thinking specific lines, thinking about general things, spacing out? In the closed trade games, I normally go back to work, haha. During open games, I would study the possible outcome of the game. What is your proudest triple triad moment? Placing third in SE Laguna, I still regret underestimating Unfixable in the semis. I was so darn close. Yeah, let's look at Laguna. I can't bring it up on your screen because I am incompetent, but yeah, we get that run that you can see on screen. Loses to Unfixable. Unfixable goes on to beat Soaps in the finals. But Mafijosie had a bunch of semifinals. I bet this one stands out because Debonair and Seto must have been so understood as elite players at that point in time as they were. And Gambit really strong too, having beaten C17, who is a big name player of the early days, and Omega Weapon as well. Yeah, it's a very good run. And I think after Laguna is the point when I have him as the as potentially the greatest tournament player to that point in time. All right. Should Delhi all be banned? Yes or absolutely? Huh? What did I miss? What happened? Should Elemental be abolished? Yes or immediately? Yes, please. Yeah, Mafi and I are on the same page. What clan will always have a place in your heart? Brotherhood of Seed. Player you think is most underrated? Was up. I'm kind of surprised by this, both because, like, okay, I'm in the world where I make these videos, and obviously I rate myself highly. But Mafijosie and I were actually on a team together, and fittingly for Mafijosie's semifinals dominance, in Rhinoa we made a semifinals, but he completely carried me. I was horrible in that run, and he was very good. Um, had a really bad Rhinoa history, not a great team player, but Mafijosie was awesome in that run, and we made a really good team. And so I'm kind of surprised he listed me as underrated because I would have thought from our experience together, he might have thought overrated. That wasn't very impressive. Who are your top 3 to 5 picks for GOAT? 1. Doc Evil. 2. Karmazin. 3. Seto. It's a good list. It's obviously not the traditional list at this point in time, but if you kind of take a moment in 2007 or 2008 and say who the top 3 all time are, like specifically before Delhi has really risen, I think there's a very good case for this as top 3. Like there's other names in there like Cookie, Kaus, Kamikaze, Sujiro. I think are the other names you could really argue for, especially I think Kamikaze and Sujiro, in my opinion. But others would say I'm really ignoring Cookie there. Um, but I think this is a very good order at this point in time. Doc Evil and Karmazin each only lost one tournament game ever and were super dominant. And were also super dominant just playing random open games, just crushing people in those. And Seto, you take any moment in history, and he's just one of the best. Phenomenal player. Unbelievable talent for Seto at playing really well after taking lengthy breaks from the game. You know, for me, if I don't play for 6, 9 months or something, I'm going to be a significantly worse player. And Seto just continually took little breaks and came back playing at a super high level. When did you start? Oh, also, I should say, I kind of thought when I first joined in 2008, I thought, I never saw Doc Evil play, but I thought Delial Seto and Karmazin were the best three players in the world in some order. And so if you're sort of your snapshot in time is before Delial hit that level, and you've seen Doc Evil, which I never did, I think this is a really makes sense as a top three. And it is entirely possible that the later players never reached the heights these did. When did you start playing, and what was your favorite era? Oh, another cool thing about Mafijosie is because he went so deep so regularly in the early tournaments, he has basically played tournament games against all the greats. And when I was doing my all-time ranking list, a bunch of players' best win ever was against Mafijosie because he played for a while, so he was available, and he got in a lot of tournament games because he won a lot of them. And so for a lot of people, he ended up being the strongest player they ever beat, or one of the best few, because Mafijosie was amazing. When did you start playing, and what was your favorite era? I started playing TTX in 2003-4 when I discovered the game after a friend played FF8. I got hooked immediately. The collecting part, the game, the community. I loved it all. Being selected for Brotherhood of Seed, participating in tourneys. Those were the days for me. I kept on playing regularly. I used to travel to China for work, spending hours in my hotel room playing TTX. Then, when TTA started, I had periods that I was fanatic. The games against Doc Evil were the best, although extremely frustrating, realizing that I missed brain cells to ever be able to beat him. Yeah, Doc Evil really sounds incredible here, because I cannot stress enough how good Mafijosie is at this game. And I think Mafijosie is really good in a whole bunch of ways. I wanna sort of stress three particularly. One, to be good at the no combo closed games, you have to have just a fantastic understanding of Triple Triad's fundamentals. And the first videos I made were kind of focusing on this because I think it's such a nice building block for how to play. And so Mafijosie has just some of the best fundamentals around. But he's also find some creative moves. And actually, I want to get to this part later, but there's an example Turds gave where Mafijosie would play a sequence against Turds that Turds never really saw from anyone else, and he was unable to beat. And it just kept working against him, and it was something Mafijosie did that no one else really does. And so he has great fundamentals, but he also finds creative sequences that use those fundamentals but are not the ways most people use them. And then you have his just enormous tournament success showing that this is not just limited to kind of close no combo, but extends to whatever open or closed rule set you want. And yet, could not beat Doc Evil at open. Have you met any other Triple Triad players in person? No, but I was in closer contact with Wirus AVL PL and Uziel.com, who I knew personally. What is your biggest weakness as a player? I didn't know Uziel was German. Anyways, what is your biggest weakness as a player? Triple Triad is like a game of chess. You must think first before you move. Do you have a funny anecdote to share? I almost got fired from my job because of TTX. It was during the days when you could still get a poo-poo or yawn in your starter deck. When the IT guy did a research on most visited websites during work hours, TTX was on top by thousands of hits over any other site. I got called into the office where my boss faced me and threatened to fire me because I refreshed the starter deck all day, hoping to get a rare. Oh, that's fun. I know there were people who farmed for the rares, just reloading starter decks and kind of new accounts and selling the cards to gain points, I think was the standard thing. And it's just, you're at your job, you have downtime between stuff you have to do, you're doing something that entertains you. Triple Triad's a great choice, and as we know, he played a ton of closed, sneaking in quick moves between having to work and having his computer observed. And this is fun that he got kind of caught here and job in danger. Glad it all, I think, worked out. And thanks so much for doing the interview. Really glad to hear from Mafijosie, because again, this is one of those players that, like, if we compare to someone like Cookie, I think just from tournaments, Cookie has a higher high, right? Mafijosie never ended up winning a tournament. Cookie won two. But Mafijosie was so good and so good throughout multiple eras. Any era in which he played in, he got a semifinals. And I think that's just, he's one of those players who you start looking through records and you're just like, every tournament he plays, he does well. Every turn, like he goes deep so often, um, and he's, I think given enough time passing, other people have played enough more that I don't quite have him in the conversation for best to never win a tournament anymore. But that might be wrong on my part, and his record is just so good. So I'm really glad to get someone not only who's an amazing player, but has recollections over a long span of time. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention, actually, I must have like misread something because there was some line he had about um, not capturing cards immediately. And I wanted to say that the line he used to use against turds that gave turds trouble. Keep in mind this was no combo. Is turds would start with a corner, and Mafijosie would take it with an A. So this was level 10, an A facing towards center, and turds would recapture his corner, and then Mafijosie would play with another A facing out from the square next to the previous A facing out. And often this just built a wall that he couldn't take. But when turds did have a way to take in five, when he captured and set up five, when he recaptured his starter, Mafijosie would then set up that sort of diagonal setup. I don't know the name of it, but let's give the squares names. So turd starts in one, Mafijosie takes from two with a 10 facing down. Turds recaptures in four, Mafijosie plays in three with a 10 facing down. Sometimes this is already trouble because turds just doesn't have captures. Mafijosie had a really good feel for that kind of second turn no combo strategy of you have to create challenges for your opponent. You have to create things that are difficult to take, and he would find offbeat ways to make sure you would have to take as many tens as possible. And I think that's really smart and not a way I ever saw other people doing it. So let's say turds does have five though. Mafijosie would now play in seven, capturing four with another 10 facing out. And often turds would have no captures and would either tie or lose from those positions. And given that first turn is a pretty big advantage in these no combo games, Mafijosie finding an irregular move order and regularly, like never losing and often winning from that, I think is really remarkable and speaks to him being a player that has a lot to teach us about the game, that really understood some neat sequences very effectively. So yeah, thanks so much to Mafijosie for doing this. I hope you enjoyed this interview. Really delighted to have got him, and I really like the story of him almost getting fired from his job, and of finding the rule set where he could play moves really quickly, and yet he played so well. The Turds quote is he was basically unbeatable at this. Um, yeah, thank you so much to Mafi.